r/AskReddit by Planet Reddit. What are the best tinfoil hat conspiracy theories regarding COVID-19? They just want everyone to stay at home so the government can change the batteries in the birds. Pigeons, not all birds. Pigeons are not all birds. Very insightful. I just had a guy tell me that he read from a reputable source that the COVID-19 virus is triggered by 5G and is controlled by China. I asked him who the source was and he said I read it online. I've lost faith in society as a whole. This is an Anthony Steele conspiracy, I think. I'll have to check it out. I've heard of 5G conspiracies and COVID-19 conspiracies, but now they've mutated into a novel conspiracy. The government wants us 6 feet apart so it's easier to read our minds, you know, less interference. And to get back to social media interaction, so we can post our secrets online like we used to. Greta Thunberg created it to save the planet from climate change. So kind of the plot of 12 Monkeys. Someone was paid off to name it coronavirus by either Budweiser or Miller. LOL, coronavirus has been around since the 1960s, so that's some serious forward thinking. Corona beer has been around since the 1920s, so it's not necessarily forward thinking. Okay. So you know how Donald Trump has older voters? There are people in my city who think that the left has developed a virus in order to kill off conservatives and then planted it in a city in China in order to make the US economy look bad after China's economy suffers. It was a wild ride. They didn't get the memo that hacking and bribery are cheaper and easier than ham-fisted biowarfare. But biowarfare is cooler. A member at the credit union I work at came in and claimed that it is aliens injecting their atmosphere into ours in random places all over the world with the purpose to weed out the weak humans that wouldn't be able to survive on their planet. Their plan is to take us all to their home planets to enslave us. This story was told while she was pulling all the money out of her account. What's the money going to do if they are going to take us to their planet and enslave us? Let's send them a message that reads, "Congrats on your newly acquired nuclear wasteland." Trump beat China so badly in the trade negotiations that they retaliated with the virus. This one is great. Yet that's the one I heard and the most plausible for sure. Remember when Donald Trump was in an argument with Kim Jong-un and then he said the US will get a gift, and then 5 days later the first cases of the virus started to come up? This is it, folks. Kim did it. Speaking of which, anybody know how North Korea is faring right now? That Bill Gates created the coronavirus so that he could come up with a vaccine and make billions off of it. Honestly cracks me up when I see those theories. That'd be some anti-vax shit. Well, it wouldn't be worth billions if vaccines didn't work. Not sure this is an anti-vax theory, lol. That on April Fools all world governments are gonna have some very good news for all of us. Hey, remember when you buried grandma? April Fool. She was totally pretending and still alive. At the time, I mean. The virus was created by the Chinese to control their population. I wonder what would happen if it came out that this was true. I'm not saying it is, but could you imagine the repercussions? Unfortunately, nothing would happen. They are horrible to their people and don't listen to them. Lawyers are useless. It may as well be run by the mafia. It would blow up on the internet for a few weeks and everyone would be obsessed with it, like Epstein, but nothing will change. Of course, I would hope that I'd be wrong. Also, I'm pretty sure WHO and United Nations or some shit would have a big confrontation with them, because it is a form of ecoterrorism. The virus was created and released by China to end the Hong Kong protests. This is Bernie Sanders' attempt to get back at the DNC by offing Biden with a virus. This might be Sanders' only chance now. If Biden gets sick and Sanders is last man standing. They are both one chilly wind gust away from the grave as it is. Hell, a good toenail fungus will doom them both. A guy told me that the virus doesn't even exist. It's just a tool used to control the masses. I asked him what about the 10,000 plus confirmed dead. He was like, nobody has died. Did you physically see someone die from it? I'm still in shock. Is this someone you know well? Do you have any idea why conspiracy theorists seem to want pin pedophilia on Tom Hanks so bad? It seems that I've seen his name pop up in that regard several times. No idea why. but I have seen him thrown in this shit more and more the last few months. Coronavirus was created so that the English Premier League would be cancelled and Liverpool won't be able to win it. Can't win the Premiership if there is no Premiership. There's a lab right next to the markets in Wuhan where it originated. A conspiracy theory is that the COVID-19 was developed there and it was meant as population control in China but got out too early. All I'm saying is there's year-long, unprecedented government protests taking place in Hong Kong that were beginning to spread to other Chinese provinces. They aren't happening anymore. That black people can't get it. The AIDS protects them. It's the alien version of pesticide before starting the harvest. So I just came up with this half an hour ago while watching the news. So one of the big things that has been affected by COVID-19 here in the US is people losing their jobs. And one thing that is making the rounds is wages provided by the government for these people. Something that I just saw on the news also suggested the idea that the government take control of face mask companies and make them provide masks 24/7 during the pandemic. You know what that sounds like? Socialism. What if COVID-19 is actually being blown way out of proportion here in the US so that Americans will be more accepting towards socialism as a whole? I doubt that that's what's happening, though. It would make a neat book though. We already have tons of socialism. It's just the word socialism that Republicans in America hate, lol. It was a government experiment. I'm not a believer in many conspiracies, but I certainly think there's something they're not telling us. Whether it's the severity of COVID-19 or some ulterior motive. IDK, but this is the first time in American history that the nation has reacted this way, and we've been through H1N1, bird flu, Ebola, and more, but we've never shut down most of the nation over any of those. So I'm gonna get real sketched out if they make a vaccine and make it mandatory for everyone to get. That would be the chip implant moment for me. No way, I'll get the vaccine, but not if they make it mandatory that everyone in America gets it. This is too weird for me, trust them with that shit. They want everyone to stay inside so they can kill the people who know too much. My mom. Coronavirus is a result of us being unable to withstand the 5G network implementation. The quarantine is actually deliberate to keep families together, as we are all doomed by a giant asteroid that will crash into Earth, resulting in total annihilation next month. The Chinese government invented the virus to get a hold on the situation in Hong Kong, but the virus accidentally got deployed in China instead of Hong Kong. Basically my theory. The whole thing is a cover-up for arrests related to Epstein and Weinstein scandals. I've heard a lot of conspiracy theories on how Democrats created COVID-19 in order to ruin Trump's bid for re-election. Trump is delaying doing anything about the virus so he can kill off the older population and then take credit for reducing social security costs before the election. Millennials in America aren't having enough offspring, so the quarantine will cause a baby boom to keep the economy steady in 15 years. Babies, taxes, workers, money. Watching everyone comply and willingly give up their rights. Martial law. Apparently it's a test run. That this virus is only phase 1 of destroying the world. This virus is intended to weaken the populace and overwhelm hospitals all around the world. This villain knows that people won't follow necessary social distancing long enough to keep flattening the curve. Once it's gotten to the point that hospitals are sunk, they'll release the real virus that will really finish the now defenseless world off in a most gruesome way. There is a radio station in Greece that allows crazy right-wingers to call, based on their testimonials. There is the accumulated theory that the coronavirus has to do with the protocols of Xi'an, and thus the world dictatorship of the New World Orderionists, which they do this by the 5-gram network, which somehow enables the artificial intelligence of the artificial coronavirus to control its host. And the Chinese switched off 5 grams and got cured. And some stuff about the vaccine being the engine to insert the 666 in everyone. And the Jews will then kill everyone. And the 5-gram logo is similar to the corona of the coronavirus, but also the Star of David or STH. But bracelets made out of the bronze and Ethernet cables can block the virus. Something about Illuminati numbers, and other stuff like that. I can't wait to find out more, get woke and unravel the web of conspiracy. It is all a big cover up for war. Source: my friend's stepdad. Some of the responses in this thread made me actually think of a new one. Biological warfare is illegal on a world scale, but that doesn't mean nations aren't still developing new shit to use when the inevitable comes. Maybe COVID-19 was developed by the Chinese and held onto in secret along with many other, more dangerous diseases they've created. However, with the protests in Hong Kong beginning to make a larger and larger impact on the mainlanders of China, just like with Tiananmen Square, the Chinese government had to do something about it. Quick, unlike with Tiananmen Square, this time they're on a global scale. They're being watched by everyone via the internet and smartphone cameras. So what do? Release one of the weaker diseases they've created and make a big ducking deal of it. Shut down Wuhan and set an example of what the world should do. Spread social distancing and get it trending to get people, the protesters, to not want to go outside, to not want to be social and discuss anything other than this virus, including the goals of the protest. This forces the protest to end by instilling fear into the people and having it reinforced on a global scale. The disease is deadly, but only because we don't have a vaccine for it. This is akin to the very first flu season ever, where many people died. But as time went on and we got vaccines, the flu became nothing. The flu is something people are currently using to laugh at the preppers because it ain't that bad. But it is bad, and many people will die. Not that China gives a duck. Any economical discourse because of this is also to their advantage, so duck em. Let them die and freak out, and the protests, i.e., future Chinese revolution, will die with them. Buying paper towels in massive amounts is acceptable and not selfish. Not a conspiracy theory, just pissed. It was meant to stop the protesting in China. What protesting in China? The last protesters ended up in the drains underneath Tiananmen Square. Toilet paper can help. I've seen several people I know float the idea on Facebook that this virus seems very convenient, considering it's our election year, when the economy is doing great, jobs are coming back, school shootings are down, war in Syria has declined, and President Donald J. Trump is doing a very great job running the country. They think this is some kind of hoax being perpetrated by the DNC to smear Donald Trump and keep people away from the polls in November. One big hoax that apparently China, the UK, Iran, Italy, scientists, health officials, most of Europe, the NBA, NCAA, Hollywood, and numerous states in the US, governed by both GOP and DNC leaders, are all in on. I've actually heard this theory from several people. I live in Singapore, where we are a little more neutral on the whole US-China rivalry. So Trump's trade war didn't work very well to cripple China. They engineer a virus. About 2 weeks before the first reported cases in Wuhan, there was a military games summit held in Wuhan, which the US military sent representatives to participate. It's extremely close to markets and place where the virus is thought to have originated, and during the 3 days off the soldiers would hang out around that exact area. Theory is that is exactly where the virus was released. Apparently one of the first few cases in Japan involve a couple who never visited Wuhan at all, not even China. They were infected even before the virus was made public by China. The only place they visited before getting infected, Hawaii. And the last thing is that apparently there are 5 slightly different strains of coronavirus. A, B, C, D and E. Viruses undergo slight mutations as they multiply, creating slightly differing strains. This is nothing new. You can tell quite a bit about how the virus has spread or where it originated by seeing which strains and how many of the strains are in a particular location. And once again, apparently, it's most likely that the country with the most number of strains would have been the originator of the virus, as it has had the virus for the longest time. China has only 2 of the 5 strains. Italy has another 2. Only one country has all 5. You guessed it, the US. Not only that, but apparently the strains in China and Italy are descended from the one that you can only find in the US. And finally, I have no idea who started this theory, but it's not the Chinese government. Probably just some dudes. I know Reddit is pretty anti-China, but this theory has little to do with them. It was created by Bernie Sanders to push Medicare for all. After there is a cure for COVID-19, COVID-20 will be released once again in Wuhan. I heard some kids in my school gossiping about it and how it will be even deadlier than Ebola. Worst part is, they are Asian. There's a bioweapons lab in China, in Wuhan. A number of years ago, one of their scientists that worked there got in trouble for selling some lab animals on the street after the lab was finished with them. Therefore, COVID-19 is an escaped biological weapon. Not my theory, but someone on my FB posted this. Personally, I think it's real and China did it to stop the protests of their communist government, and that was happening in Hong Kong cause the revolt was spreading through other provinces as China, and then the USA knew about it. Major governments, even Canada, were briefed on it in December but thought that it could be contained in China, so no one cared. But then, because the Trump administration unfortunately has many leaks, Democrats heard and were like, let's ducking use it to make USA socialist. That's why we have bullshit coming up like universal basic income and working from home, which is a privilege not a right, and more social aid given to welfare leeches who don't work. Imo. It is one hell of a tinfoil hat conspiracy, lol. I don't think the US government is that organized to set loose a worldwide pandemic for pushing more social services. But I guess that's why it's a conspiracy with no actual facts. Woman shrugging. My grandparents are convinced that Barack Obama had the virus engineered to kill off old people and that somehow Joe Biden is involved in the plan. Iran was playing up earlier this year, and bada bing bada boom, they just happened to have one of the worst breakouts. Not saying the virus was made for this reason, just opportunistic use of a virus by a government. I'm not and never have been a conspiracy theorist, but I believe in one. The start of the spread of COVID-19 was started BC. A Chinese scientist had strains of the virus and was trying to make a vaccine. Then the scientist accidentally got the virus and spread it. That's not all. There are videos of Chinese citizens, possibly government workers, employees, paid helpers, who have the virus and are very obviously spreading the virus by sneezing, coughing, spitting on public used things. I've seen it on doorknobs, elevator buttons, etc. Here is one example of a woman who spit on elevator buttons. YouTube link. Saw this one on Instagram. This virus was created purposely by the New World Order. They want the media to scare the living shit out of everyone around the world and beg for a vaccine to be made. Said vaccine will have mind-numbing chemicals in them that will make people more docile and willing to accept their fates as wage slaves to the top 1%. The vaccine will become a requirement for everyone around the world. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for 3 videos a day.